It was Sunday, March 3rd, 1946. The beginning of a reign of terror for the people of Texarkana and surrounding areas of Arkansas and Texas. A terror so indelibly imprinted that today, 30 years later, people still speak of it fearfully. The incredible story you are about to see is true. Where it happened and how it happened. Only the names have been changed.
Welcome to Now Playing Podcast's The Town That Dreaded Sundown retrospective series.
And then they did a retrospective.
A review chosen by Now Playing patron Sean Ray.
Glad to know you, sir.
Hosted by Arnie.
Fact is, Chief, the only thing we really do know is that we've got a very strange person on our hands.
Stuart.
He was the boogeyman, they said.
And Jacob.
The big man himself. Living legend.
But be warned, this episode will contain detailed plot spoilers and strong language.
I want my entire team to hear what you have to say. If you think it's important, we think it's important.
We hope you enjoy the show.
I must say they do know how to please a man.
Today we're discussing The Town That Dreaded Sundown, starring Ben Johnson, Andrew Prine, Dawn Wells, directed by Charles B. Pierce. This is the Now Playing co-host with a strange, sadistic imagination, Arnie.
And Stuart.
And this is Jacob, the co-host whose mouth has two speeds, wide open and stop.
Well, this is something we don't do every day. We have a patron pick to cover, but we're not releasing it for patrons. We're giving it to everyone here on Free Tuesday.
Yeah, it's a slasher film. We're coming up towards Halloween, or at least October, and we always try to cover a little bit of horror. Our Fridays are filled this month, but this seemed like a good release to get everybody in the mood during a rare week where our Tuesday show is not something that just came out in theaters. No, this is something that came out in 1976, so quite a change of pace.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I think I've explained to people that when I was in my horror phase, that late 80s, I did have a big encyclopedia of horror. I think Fangoria published it. It was about 500 pages. And this had a big layout in it. This was a talking point. I've never seen Town That Dreaded Sundown before, but I always knew its reputation from that book, and I always thought the poster looked really cool.
I'm confused, guys, because I had never seen this one. I think I may have heard of it, but you keep saying horror, and I assumed I was going to watch some horror. It looks like Jason from Friday the 13th Part 2 with that sack on his head on the poster, but I guess we'll discuss if this is a slasher or horror. It's a docudrama. It's reminding me more of Zodiac than anything else. That David Fincher movie.
Yes. It is the work of Charles B. Pierce, for sure. I'm assuming you guys don't know him?
I looked at his filmography.
I've never heard of this man. I've never heard of this film.
Okay, yeah. Archivist of Arkansas Lore is a title that's been given to him. He is an independent filmmaker, you know, in the same way that I guess John Waters is Baltimore. This guy is Texarkana, and he grew up there. He wanted to tell stories about the region, and he had a big old hit in 1972 with The Legend of Boggy Creek, which sort of was right there. He was riding the wave of what would become a whole lot of docudramas about the supernatural. Like, apparently, Boggy Creek is where the folk monster is from. That's Fouke. And that looks enough like Bigfoot that we had a whole lot of Bigfoot documentaries come out after it. And a whole lot of, you know, like Roswell aliens, Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd use documentary. That implies that it's real.
Mm-hmm. You know what it was? They didn't have YouTube back then.
You had to make a full film.
Back in the 70s, you just had to turn to independent filmmakers to give you that kind of information, air quotes, around that. But Boggy Creek was G-rated and was a big old hit. They made it for nothing, and it made about $20 million in its entire run. And so what other local legends can we exploit after, you know, it was made in the same way, had the same narrator. It was the filmmaker going around creeks and talking to locals who claimed to have seen this, you know, abominable creature running around in the forest. How do we follow this up with another monster, so to speak, that is reputed to be from the same area? Now, I'm curious. Yes, there is a cult following for this movie, but I don't think it's particularly big. And I'm wondering, why did one of our patrons pick it? Sean Ray, he's donated for a lot.
Yeah, Seven Samurai. How do we go from Seven Samurai to this film?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Well, he calls this one of his 3 favorite slasher films. So, Jacob, he does deem this a slasher.
Okay, to be discussed, to be determined.
And, just in case you want to know his other 2, it's the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the original Halloween. So, big fan of 70s classic slashers.
And there's a kinship between all 3 of those films. I mean, I do feel like, yes, I can see that if you liked one, you would be interested in the others.
And he's from Texas and lived in and visited family in various small Texas towns in the Panhandle that he said are very similar to Texarkana. Towns where you knew your neighbors and leaving your doors unlocked at night is very common. So to see the killer in this film terrorize the community was very chilling to him in a way that other slashers aren't.
I mean, I've been on the record. I am an urbanite. I dread small towns. There is something scary about them. And I know I never went to Texarkana when I lived in Texas, but I went to some Texas small towns and I was dreading them before sundown even happened.
And he said he didn't recognize until recently that Friday the 13th Part 2 ripped this off. Jacob, you mentioned that mask from Part 2.
Yeah.
Sean Ray brings that up, and also he says the opening shot of Jason in that movie is the same as the opening shot of the killer in this movie. Walks into frame, we only see blue jeans and boots. I don't think any of us thought Steve Miner was exactly a horror genius, a master of horror, Steve Miner, so that he was ripping off this film does not shock me. And he does ask, though, is this a slasher? He's never seen a slasher use a lead pipe and a .32 pistol.
Or a trombone!
And he wishes they'd remove the comedic elements, which we will be talking about.
We will discuss that.
Impossible. Can't do it.
But he thinks the thriller horror elements are so effective he'll forgive the movie's failings, and he wanted to hear us discuss it. So thank you very much, Sean Ray, for your support of our show. As I said, I'd never heard of it, and I'm positive had you not pledged, I never would have seen it.
Well, you say sundown towns and put a guy in a white hood on a poster, and I have a very different idea about what the horror is that we're facing.
I mean, it's Texarkana. You're not wrong.
Right. Yes, exactly. This could very much be a movie about racial politics. But in fact, it's kind of an obscure chapter. I mean, I think you talk about, Jack the Ripper, you talk about Richard Speck, people have an awareness about serial killers, but Moonlight Murders, I think you gotta dig really deep. I think you have to be from Texarkana and have grandparents from there to even know that this happened in 1946.
It's gotta be the name, right? Jack the Ripper has some cachet. I mean, it just is evocative a name. Moonlight Murders sounds like a TV show starring Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis.
Indeed. Although I want to point out, we have these ideas built up that Jack the Ripper, I remember going to London, I'm going to take the tour, I'm going to learn all about his bloody rampage. 5 people? I mean, that's not nothing, but at the same time, by today's standards, I mean, I think we hear about massacres with a much higher body count done all the time, frankly. So I guess it shows how naive we were back in 1946 that there could be 4 attacks, not even all people killed. 4 people, I think, die in this. And, that's left the scar. I think what this movie's really about, it's not about the events. I'm just going to go ahead and say I've done a little digging into the historical part. We'll talk about it as we go through the movie. Very little about what's on screen actually happened. But I do think this director was a child in 1946, living in the era. And I think he was trying to make a film about that paranoia, about what it was to be in a town where as the sun went down, everyone was going to buy guns and, nail up dirty sheets on their windows and doing whatever they can to protect themselves from the boogeyman. And so this movie, I guess it doesn't bother me that it isn't very much about the actual Moonlight Murders and much more about maybe even a child's perspective about what evil is.
Is that what this film's about? We'll discuss it.
Yeah. Oddly enough, this thing did open around Christmas against Barbra Streisand's A Star Is Born back in the day. And it had a pretty good run, but I think in part because it was an indie film. It just didn't get distributed in the same way a Hollywood feature would get distributed. And so, yeah, it was not on cable when I was growing up. And I don't think it's bloody enough. Once, I was of age to be watching horror stuff, it just can't compete with the stuff that we were watching on a regular basis. So I do think that it did fall into obscurity until Shout Factory kind of rescued it and put out a pretty detailed Blu-ray that I watched and all the bonus features for. So if you're wanting to know how you might see this movie, it is on Prime, and there has been a Blu-ray restoration in the last 10 years.
Yeah, just to review the Blu-ray for a moment, not the greatest restoration. They obviously had a print, it had some scratches in it, it definitely showed its age, but it was a pretty nice transfer. The colors were good, and it was not very grainy. It was easy to watch in the home theater.
Yeah, and I mean, keep in mind, independent film, this thing is not being preserved in the way that, I mean, you can take your knocks at Hollywood all you want, but they got a system, and they protect their assets, and yeah, I think this one has just not been shown the love. So I guess that's what we're here to do, or at least give it its full consideration as a horror movie. Arnie, why don't you give them the plot? We'll get into this Town That Dreaded Sundown.
In 1946, in Texarkana, a town that straddles the border of Texas and Arkansas,
I feel like I'm in the movie right now watching it. This is exactly how the movie starts.
A mysterious serial killer terrorized the town. He preyed primarily on couples who had gone to secluded locations for romantic encounters. This killer was known as the Phantom. This film depicts the Phantom's 2-month killing spree, which started in early March and ended in early May. We meet some of the law enforcement officers investigating the killings, including Texas Ranger J.D. Morales, played by Ben Johnson, and Deputy Norman Ramsey, played by Andrew Prine. But the police are unable to get any solid leads or evidence as to who the killer may be. And come May of 1946, the killings stop just as suddenly as they began. At the film's climax, Morales and Ramsey finally get a lead. A car matching one stolen from a murder scene was spotted. The two law officers investigate and see the Phantom. They shoot the Phantom in the leg, but he escapes. And in a final voiceover, we're told the Phantom's identity was never discovered, as credits roll. And Jacob, you mentioned it as we start. Wow, is there a lot of voiceover in this?
It never stops in this film. Like, fine, do it for your intro, set the setting, but nope, it's just gonna keep going. That's why horror, slasher, nah, this is a docudrama.
You know what I was thinking of? A Christmas Story with blood. With all of the narration and looking back at the 40s, talking about the cars, how everybody was trying to get a car and automobiles were new in the US, all of this retrospective stuff and the voiceover was making me think of Ralphie.
I mean, it got to the point, I know this is 1976, but I kept thinking this was a 1950s film with this hokey narration telling me everything constantly.
Yeah. Here's what I would offer, first and foremost. Independent cinema. Like, part of that means you didn't work in the system. This is not a horror movie that Hollywood would ever make. You wouldn't make it this way. Maybe you'd start this way. Maybe you'd have the newsreels to set the tone, but you would never make something that, yes, masquerades as this newsreel. And again, I think that just kind of shows how Pierce wasn't thinking like a Hollywood filmmaker. He was doing his own thing. And yeah, would this movie be better if he did just tell a non-narrated movie?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would obviously be more of a horror movie. By making it this way, well, it implies that he's trying to tell you something about where he comes from. But again, I just want to stress, starting from this beginning, from this opening where we have these, wholesome tableaus of teenage boys opening car doors for teenage girls and people getting married and buying cars, as you say, all of this stuff. This is not Texarkana. Texarkana is, by any measure, a rowdy town. It had the reputation of being Little Chicago. It had a huge presence of mob and the underground. And I don't think it gets emphasized in this movie, but it is a dual town. It has two of everything. It has two mayors, two police force. That led to part of the confusion is that they weren't working with each other on this case. And some of the murders happened on one side and some on the others. Two airports. It was heavily trafficked. It was a town where people came in by train. They were going somewhere else. And so seedy, exciting. a lot going on. There is in no way, as it's presented in this opening here, of a pleasant, wholesome place that gets rocked by murder. Murder would have been happening quite a lot. Like I said, this had huge mob presence.
And I didn't really get that duality, except I realized at some point, because the narrator told me that, yes, 2 police forces were working on this case.
Did they say that? I didn't ever hear them say it. I actually never heard them clarify.
Yeah, at one point. They say it at one point.
I want to be clear. You got from this movie that this was a split town.
No, not that it was a split town, but I thought it was a border town. Maybe I'm bringing that in because I lived in Texas. I knew it was over by Arkansas. I didn't realize it straddled both sides. But at one point they say Texas and Arkansas and Ranger. Like, they talk about people that are coming in, but it's not emphasized. It's like a line.
Yeah, I think, again, they would have you believe, I think, from this opening that this is small town USA.
And Texarkana is a pretty big town today. I drive through it pretty regularly when I'm taking road trips. And, it is not small town, leave your doors open at night, Little House on the Prairie land by any means. It's got a lot of exits, a lot of businesses are there.
And the way they set this up is like, this is post-World War II, our boys are coming home, industry is up, and then they start talking about like, maybe people are moving out, so I'm like, oh, okay, it's going to explore like, this whole post-World War II and the effect that had on small-town America. Like, no, you could say this is about someone processing what happened in their town. I have a hard time buying that just the way it plays out, but I felt like it was trying to set up some kind of commentary of like, the boys brought the war home with them or something like that, but it's just place setting.
Yeah. Does this movie mean to imply? Because it does have this lingering moment talking about the war's over and everyone, is wondering what the soldiers are going to, they're out of uniform. What are they going to do next? We'll quickly see the image of this guy in blue jeans with work boots, and that's the implied killer. Are they trying to imply that the killer is a crazed war vet? That World War II did this to the person, that they brought the war home?
I was looking for that based on this setup narration in the beginning, but I don't see any evidence for that.
Yeah, there's nothing concrete enough about the killer in order to support or go against that theory. I thought it was more about how post-war things were still idyllic, jobs were good, cars were good, the boys were back home, everything was good, except for they do have a dropped line about some tension with Russia that was growing, but beyond the growing tension with Russia, everything is good, and I thought it was about how that illusion was shattered by the Phantom.
The thing is, we don't think of World War II veterans in the same way as we would, say, non-veterans. This movie comes out in 1976. We had a lot of movies about non-veterans coming home and killing people and losing it and being crazy. So maybe that's just some carryover. Maybe that is without, it remains subtext. But I do wonder, I don't know. Maybe the killer is a veteran. We don't know.
Believe it or not, one of the movies that came to mind as I was trying to process this one, I think it's one of the few films where it does try to show what effects did World War II have on, 1950s America, and that's Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master, a very different film than this one, but it did try to take that look. Like, was there something about post-World War II that gave rise to things like Scientology and this violent Joaquin Phoenix character and all that? So, again, I was looking for those ties because, yeah, that movie did that, but you're right, that doesn't often happen, and the way this is set up, I'm thinking that, but it just doesn't go anywhere as far as that subtext goes.
All I know is that they do the classic, only the names have been changed, this is a true story BS. Bullshit. Lies. Almost everything we're here to talk about didn't happen the way it's being presented.
There's no trombone?
No, we'll talk about that. It was the saxophone, and it was not used as a murder device.
Saxophone? Yeah, I don't know how you'd use a sax as a murder weapon except to, just drive me crazy because I hate the sax.
So, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the killings this is based on aren't really that close to the truth. There were killings in Texarkana.
No, yes. I'll walk you through it. We'll start at March 3rd, 1946, and instead of February 22nd, when the first attack was said to have happened, the reason why they changed the date is that they're going to imply that there's some kind of 21-day cycle, that the killer is being moved by the moon or something, and that's just not the truth.
Yeah, I love that it's 3 weeks apart for the killings, but it's almost always a full moon, which is, 4 weeks apart. So I don't know exactly how the Phantom adjusted the moon schedule to fit his killing.
It was 1946. Astronomy was different.
Yeah. Most people aren't even really sure that this first attack is related to whoever attacks the later victims. I tend to think not. For one thing, this couple lives. They are not murdered in the way that the future couples will be. And we're given the names Linda Mae Jenkins and Sammy Fuller, but they are, in fact, Jimmy Hollis and Mary Jean Larry.
Here you go, exposing the innocent. The names were changed to protect the innocent.
Well... And then Wikipedia came along and exposed the innocent again. So,
and we're going to talk about a Loomis, but is this a nod to Sam Fuller, the director?
Oh, there's almost nothing known about Charles Pierce because he was so independent. He made a lot of films. I think he made about 13, but it was at a time when we didn't have commentary. We didn't have Entertainment Tonight knocking on his door and asking for exclusives. Nobody really knows a whole lot about him. So what his influences are, what he was trying to do with this movie is largely forgotten by time.
But this is a pretty decent slasher film opening. I mean, we do get a couple minutes of narration, which is a lot, but we're going to have our very first scene. We get that date printed on the screen, the March 3rd, and then you've got two people going off to make out in a car, or what you call making out in 1946 is, I guess, laying your head in a woman's lap and not doing anything.
I mean, that was pretty suggestive. I think he was trying to do something. He's moving in that direction at Lover's Lane.
But I'm expecting a slasher film based on what Sean Ray had said, and this is going to give me that feel. Again, you see the feet and the blue jeans come up, you've got a masked killer, you've got these two in the car making out, which is, the sin for most slasher films is you try to be sexually active and you're going to die for that. These two, or at least Sammy here, wants to get some kind of activity going. Linda Mae seems a little bit more resistant, but that's what's going to be their sin for which they'd be punished if this was, again, a standard slasher fare.
I feel like you're trying to force the slasher thing. I'm thinking Zodiac by Fincher. Like, there was a scene like this or where people were attacked at a park that were just trying to, lovers make out or whatever. I wouldn't call that a slasher because it's depicting a real-life murderer.
Well, what Arnie is saying is true, and what you're saying is also true. This movie was made, and probably the reason why it was made is in part because the Zodiac Killer is wanted, and there is a manhunt for him. And so the thought that there are psychopaths living among us, killing us when we go out parking with our girl, would have been on people's minds in 1976. They're exploiting that fear. But I do think Arnie's right, that this movie is on the head of a curve of a whole genre that will just take this as a boilerplate. That, how many horror movies have we seen open since this time in which two people are seemingly alone in the woods or the lake or whatever, and a masked killer appears to off them. Now, about that mask, it is quite a look. I think we've already cited how influential it is. I also remember there was a TV movie called Night of the Scarecrow that had a similar look to this that scared me when I was a kid. Fun fact, the killer probably didn't wear a mask. In the end, there's no way to verify because most of the people that saw him are dead, but there was a huge discrepancy between this couple. The woman said, I saw a black man wearing a white mask, and the guy said, I saw a white guy, no mask. And it's largely believed that she knew the attacker and changed his race to hide who he was.
White women have been doing that for a long time, I guess.
I know, right? Again, let's talk about Sundown Town. Let's talk about some real horror. Well, but anyway, this first case probably doesn't belong in this movie. It is linked to this movie because it is the first time a couple is targeted in a short period of time in a certain region, but it is not really believed in the evidence that is found that it was the same attack, which brings me back to my original point. This is less about following the modus operandi of a killer, understanding why he's doing it and following him and reveling in his attacks, and more understanding that this is a town that's just drawing crazy conclusions based on very little evidence and a lot of fear.
Yeah, we're going to be told that there was no evidence of rape, but the woman was heavily bitten, and I thought, okay, we're going to explore all this. Why does this killer, have a biting fetish or whatever? And yeah, you're right, it's going to be the police doing pretty bad police work and not being able to come up with any real conclusions.
By some accounts, the real victim was penetrated by a gun barrel, but most people say that none of the victims were sexually assaulted.
And after this brief attack. I mean, we're still in the opening credits at the end of this attack, about 7 minutes into the movie only. We are going to be introduced to who are our main characters, which is the police.
Yeah, who is the main character of this film, Arnie?
Yeah, I think it's the police. I think the characters we're going to follow on this investigation, like Zodiac, we're following the people doing the investigating here because all the victims are going to be introduced and offed in the same scene. And so they're not going to matter so much as the law enforcement officers trying to stop these killings. And is that a mistake? I personally think so because, you know, Stuart, you famously said you like horror movies where you can sympathize with the victims over sympathizing with the killers. Here, how can you sympathize with the victims when you never get a chance to know the victims?
Well, you watched Gilligan's Island, but we'll talk about that later.
Oh, we'll talk about Don Wells. The first time I recognized someone in this movie, I got excited. But yeah, I agree. Like, I'm trying to watch this and like, whose name matters as I'm taking notes. Here's some victims, but oh, they're dead. So I guess that's just another part of the story. Yeah, there's this Morales and Sparkplug. If they're our main characters, this bad sign for this movie. Like, I don't learn anything about them. I see them do investigation, but I don't know if I learn anything about them as characters.
I think Ramsey's clearly the main character. Andrew Prine is the actor. We've seen him. He was in the TV pilot of Wonder Woman. He started out in The Miracle Worker. Same year, he was in a Killer Bear movie called Grizzly. He did a bonus featurette on the Blu-ray and quite a fun guy. He kept stressing what a good time he had on this set and how he kept showing up hungover. He's our point of view character. And I think what I'm hearing you say, Jacob, and I want to help frame this for you. This is not a professional movie. So the fact that you're not able to find arcs and the third act and the characters and all of that is because we have a director that does not know what he is doing.
Okay, that has nothing to do with this being an indie or non-studio film. There are plenty of indie and non-studio films that are able to follow storytelling. Like, so this is a director thing. This is his choice, which is fine. Like, if he wants to do more of this documentary style, that's my understanding of his big hit. It's done as this pseudo-documentary. Like, that's his style, but it's jarring coming in expecting a more traditional type film.
Of course it is, because it's not a traditional film, and that is going to be the hiccup. I just want to put it out there. You can't like this movie because it's well made. It is not well made. This is a badly made film.
No, I agree.
But that is not to say that there's not things here to be entertained by. And the fact that it straddles this line in between Mayberry and Friday the 13th, for me, is what makes it an interesting experience. It makes me feel like I'm back in film school watching somebody that hasn't really mastered the art of screenwriting and directing, and you're just getting a look into their brain.
I just want you to clarify, Stuart. Are all these backhanded compliments? Like, are these positive things you're saying? Because they all seem, like I said, backhanded compliments.
Well, Jacob, one thing I know about you is you like outsider art. You can't get more outsider than Charles Pierce. This is somebody that is not playing the way that the studio would want you to play, the way audiences would expect you to play. And so you just kind of have to meet it there, is what I would offer.
For sure. I love Romero. What he did with Night of the Living Dead is much more professional than this. But, like, when he has a pie fight in Dawn of the Dead, yeah, I'm questioning those choices. Like, we'll talk about the humor here. It's a choice.
It definitely is. And I do think that, again, what people do is they show their influences. This guy watched a lot of TV, obviously. He's not a horror guy. He's not trying to create. He doesn't know what he's making. That's what's kind of fascinating about it is he doesn't know that he's setting the template for Halloween. He would have known about Texas Chainsaw. Obviously, that movie came out 2 years before, and he was trying to jump on that. But he didn't really know how that movie worked. He didn't study it. He made like a film a year, so it wasn't like he spent a whole lot of time designing this film. What we're seeing here is, again, someone that feels like they've watched way too much Mayberry once we meet the cops.
For sure.
You know, and the director is actually playing Sparkplug. That is him in a supporting role.
That's him?
Yes. The reason why they didn't cut it.
Oh boy. He gave himself the worst role in this film. He's the worst thing about this film. The cop named Sparkplug we're introduced to here. He's had 4 months on the force and can't even follow so simple an order as to not threaten to shoot a townsperson's dog.
Funny story about that. Hold that thought, because that actually happens behind the scenes. There's dog shooting. We'll talk about it when we get to Dawn Wells. But yes.
Oh, no.
The fact that his character's not playing by the rules here at the beginning, and the fact that this movie is not playing by the rules, just kind of shows you. I mean, all the people on the commentary, the actors and cinematographer, all the people that bothered to come back and talk about their experience on this, said he was a really, quote, interesting guy, had a lot of interesting ideas. Nobody was using the language that he was a gifted filmmaker. And indeed, he's not.
Okay, I thank you for admitting that, at least.
I think I'm pretty clear about this. This movie is badly made. Incredibly badly made. Badly made in the way that I haven't seen since I've been in film school, when I watched people that didn't even know how films worked.
Student film is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a student film. I'm watching a student film.
Yeah, you said that, but I wasn't sure if you were really damning the film as hard as it was coming off, because you were saying it in a way that seemed pseudo-complimentary.
Well, I'm not damning the film. I'm not damning the film. I'm entertained by this film.
You're like, give the guy a break. It's an amateur film.
But I recognize it's not good by any traditional metric.
Okay, as long as we're all on the same page with that. This is not a good film, but I'm still not sure what to expect until I'm about halfway into the film. I mean, we're going to have a little bit of time here with the cops. I expect this to not focus on the cops so much.
Yeah, what slasher movie focuses on cops? Never. Cops exist in slasher movies to be killed. The fact that this is going to be so much about Ramsey trying to tie up, loose ends and then not doing it. Yeah, it makes it impossible to see this as a prototype slasher.
But we are gonna pretty quickly get to a second attack. I can't really call it a second kill, but the second attack coming on March 24th. We have Howard Turner and Emma Lou Cook.
29 and 17 years old.
Yeah, I was about to say, forget the crime of murder. Like this, they already should be in jail. Yeah.
Statutory rape.
Crazy stuff. And also true to form. Like that they didn't change from the reality. The names have been changed. It's Richard Griffith and Polly Ann Moore. But yes, she was a minor and it was Texas.
The ages haven't.
And I guess that was okay.
I mean, it was 1940s Texas. Yeah, I wasn't surprised.
Mm-hmm.
It was a shock, but it makes sense.
But yes, this is not necessarily the same killer. I don't know what they would have had to tie it. What evidence? This is the first time a gun is being used. And what will link the second and the third attacks is that they believe it's the same make, the same gun. Whereas, again, all that they have to go on with the first one and this one is in this movie, the cop goes, well, it's been 21 days and I'm, going to contrive that that's part of the killer's method.
Yeah, I was thinking this was jarring that we went from this violent physical attack at the beginning to gunshots. So thank you for explaining why that may have been. They may have been different killers.
Yeah, I don't even think gunshots are that rare here. I mean, again, a mobster town.
But can a slasher use a pistol?
It's Texas. Yeah.
But to see a horror movie killer pull a gun and start shooting people, it definitely lessened the impact a little bit, I think.
But again, think of it not as just another slasher, a movie that would evolve into what you're talking about. Those movies don't exist yet. None of what you're talking about. Halloween is 2 years away. The only thing like this is Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah, we're in the era with Black Christmas 1974 where they're trying to figure out the formula and they haven't gotten all of the tropes down yet. And so that's why this is throwing me for a loop. I've seen all those 80s slashers, and so to see it before the format was finalized, it sticks out what doesn't work so well with it.
Mm-hmm. And don't tell me John Carpenter didn't watch this and go, oh, he would have really had something if he just cut all the police stuff. I think it's helpful for the later genre people. I can tell you there are certain shots and things, we've talked about it, the costuming, that are cribbed from later movies that play better because they learned from this movie's mistakes. This movie isn't all bad ideas, but it definitely shows what you should and shouldn't do in the genre.
No, there's things that intrigue me, like in this second couple that gets attacked and murdered, Emma Lou, she's tied facing forward to the tree. Again, I think we're going to explore all these different methods and why is he tying them like this and then biting them. So there are those little details that is keeping me invested. Even I think it's obviously amateurish. It feels kind of hokey at times, but I'm okay, we got a method. That's how serial killers work. Let's get into the psychology of that, but we'll never do that. But at the beginning, I did not know that.
Yeah, I think even if we don't, again, there's a lot of B movies that, film archivists, analysts, people that want to make a name for themselves through the writing about film. There's plenty of subtext here for them to dive in. That the movie is not going to explicitly tell you doesn't mean that someone can't write the paper.
Jacob, I have a question for you. Given that you seem to know the least about the true storyness about this in this film, did you think at some point the killer would be unmasked? Did you think maybe even this was a whodunit and the killer might have been somebody we saw in the town?
I mean, they do allude later on, like they show someone's foot and they get out and leave as he's hearing the cops talk about the case. So yeah, I'm like, maybe that they caught this guy. I was buying this as like, this is the true story. I did have Texas Chainsaw Massacre on my mind. I'm like, are they messing with us? Oh no, this like is actually based on a real thing. So I didn't know how it was going to play out. I didn't cheat and go to Wiki first, but I would put money on it that they caught the guy and something was going to be revealed. Yes.
You would have to. Again, if you're making a traditional police procedural, they don't make movies where the police don't catch them. Like, you know, they did later. Zodiac. David Fincher will make that movie.
French Connection. The end of this movie just made me think French Connection.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, I was thinking Zodiac the whole time, so not French Connection. That did not come to mind.
Well, think about the ending of The French Connection. Spoiler alert for that film, but a cop is chasing a criminal, gets some shots out, and the criminal just escapes, and the cop is frustrated. And then credits roll. I think it's very French Connection here.
But they knew what criminal they were chasing. I mean, this is a murder mystery, right? This is about who done it. Every who done it tells you who did it. And that this movie is not going to do that shows, you know, that the time wasn't spent crafting this in a way that would satisfy.
Oh, I'll say that's not even my main problem by the end. Again, Zodiac, I guess they said they arrested someone, like, but that whole film was about the ambiguity and, like, we don't know who it is, and they show the paranoia, just not have a narrator tell us about it. Like, that is my frustration, is, like, okay, this is about, like, a faceless murderer and all that, but I want to feel, like, that dread. This is called The Town That Dreaded Sundown. It's hard to feel dread when the narrator is telling me most of the stuff that's going on.
Oh, there's no dread. There's not one moment in this movie that's scary. I defy anyone to point to a single scene, maybe some imagery, but there's nothing scary in this movie.
That trombone.
Yeah, funny, but not scary. You know, like the moment where like he lifts the car hood and comes down, like that 3 seconds, that was, you know, that could work. But by and large, no, I don't want to celebrate this as somebody that really was the next Hitchcock and knew how to get you. Definitely not. And again, we're talking true story. The true story is this couple was murdered and then their bodies were moved in the car to make sure that they weren't found. And it was no cop that found them. And it was not 21 days afterwards. None of what we're watching here is how it happened. There was no tied to a tree. All of this is contrivances of the screenwriter. I was wondering why his face was that color. Like, is he wearing blackface? Because that'll get him killed. Do you notice that? The victim, when Ramsey's walking around with the flashlight and it's like bright daylight. They're like trying to pretend.
I thought it was just bad makeup because everything's bad in this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the technical aspects are terrible, but like it's supposed to be the middle of the night. You can see the body just lying in front of him, feet away, and he's pretending like he can't. Yeah, this is, again, to me, this is amusing. I am laughing. I am having a good time chuckling at a movie.
Yeah, Brown Arrow.
Yeah. But scary, I can't believe anybody would be afraid of this unless you were a child or grew up in the time that this happened.
Yeah, and then, again, we've talked about the amateurish of this director. Did he write this as well?
No, but it was a good friend that had done the stuff for Boggy Creek, so it was kind of like an in-house job.
Okay, yeah, because the fact that it's around this time the narrator tells us the town dreaded sundown, I'm expecting, we're going to see this town start turning on each other. The paranoia is going to play in. They're not going to be the friendly, small town attitude anymore, but that's none of this. You call this the town. I'm expecting to learn more about this town, see how it affects this town.
You see it. That poor woman, she nails up a dirty sheet. I mean, couldn't you at least put up a clean sheet?
Yeah, we get one shot of a dirty sheet. Okay, that doesn't tell me about a town.
I mean, it makes you laugh at the naivete, right? Like the idea that like that sheet's going to keep out a killer.
I was so confused why you would use a sheet to stop a killer. Like, what is that going to do?
It makes me laugh. That's what it does. It makes me smile.
But this is when we're going to be bringing in the Texas Rangers, Captain J.D. Morales, and yeah, I'm thinking that maybe something's actually going to get done. You don't fuck with the Texas Rangers.
Yeah. Ben Johnson, Oscar winner. Can you believe that you can win the Academy Award and 4 years later you're making this movie?
Yeah, we did Catwoman.
I don't know. Catwoman, again, is a Hollywood film. There's a certain level of professionalism. Even in a bad Hollywood film, there are certain things that happen that aren't getting caught in this production.
I'm just talking about Halle Berry had a fast downfall.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Cuba Gooding Jr., he did Snow Dogs after he won the Oscar. That's kind of the joke now when you win the Best Actor, Actress Oscar. You're going to do crap afterwards.
Yes. Poor Ben Johnson is, he's a veteran of a lot of Westerns. We may know him from another slasher. He was the conductor on Terror Train. If you remember Jamie Lee Curtis's last slasher of the 80s, he was on that train.
I remember the film. I don't remember him in it.
Yeah. Well, Last Picture Show is what he won the statue for. He was pretty good in that film. Here, again, he's in a different movie. Like, no one told him what a slasher was. No one said, you're Donald Pleasance. They didn't know what that was. It'll be John Carpenter. You got to leave that to the smart people to figure out how to tweak this.
Yeah, thank God John Carpenter came along with like a synth score instead of this goofy-ass score that's playing as Sparkplug can't find the key. Like, this goes on for so long, him looking for the keys. I'm sorry, I just don't understand. Did the director think this was funny and that's why it goes on forever?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't believe the score in this movie. During this, it's like, you said Mayberry, Stuart, and definitely this feels like some music for Gomer Pyle scenes.
Yeah, Barney Fife, for sure, right? That's what he's playing. That's what he saw. That's what most people did. I just want to remind you, television was the dominant art form. More people watched Mayberry than they went into horror movies in the theater. So again, this would have been his frame of reference, and I guess he thought that he, would first give himself a choice part. And, he milks it a lot. And yeah, maybe it is amusing to see this Texas Ranger constantly being thrown around the backseat of a car, breaking a cigar, having to bark orders. It feels like television sitcom.
Especially when they decide to put Sparkplug in a dress. I mean, that's a knee slapper anytime you get somebody dressing in drag, right? Especially Sparkplug.
So much talk about his fake boobs.
Yeah. I mean, that is a true part of the story, is that the cops, one of the things that this Texas Ranger said when he came into town is that we'll have to do sting operations. And that means, I guess there were no lady cops on these forces.
This is 1946. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. So one of you is going to pretend to be the girl, and you'll just be in the car at the makeout point with the shotgun, waiting to see if he'll show up.
Yeah, like you said, Jacob, the fact that the boobs are lopsided and one's bigger than the other, there's going to be so much poking fun at it. And admittedly, they're all laughing at Sparkplug, so I'm kind of on board because I find him annoying as his coworkers do. But yeah, this is not funny stuff. I don't know that it would ever be funny, but it's certainly not funny today.
I mean, it is funny in a Brown Arrow, I can't believe they're doing this kind of way. In a like, oh my God, he thought, like, it just keeps going. Would someone tell him to cut this kind of way? But yeah, it is not traditionally uproarious that they're doing these bits. And more to the point, any horror fan will be very confused why so much time is being spent on any attempt at slapstick. This is just not how you would want to spend what feels like at least a fourth of the movie.
Yeah, even Sean Ray wishes this stuff was cut.
Mm-hmm. But because it is so bad, I think it helps future people realize how to shape what a slasher movie is. Is this a slasher movie? No, but it's on its way. And as soon as they figure out that you don't put Barney Fife in a slasher movie, the closer you get to Halloween.
By the way, I do have one question as we get to this third night's attack is, they've had a curfew in place. We saw the town dreads sundown, so I was wondering why anybody would be out for the killer to attack anyway. The key is it's a high school prom, and they show us a scene of this prom, and there are two women there spiking the punch, and they are so old. Are they supposed to be students or teachers?
Teachers.
No, they're teachers. You know they're teachers because they don't spike the punch bowl, just their drinks. But so much time is spent on this. I'm like, oh, they're going to be tipsy, and that's why they're going to wander out into the wilderness and get killed. No, this is supposed to be humor, I guess.
But keep in mind, we haven't had Prom Night, the movie, yet. It's going to be 5-6 years before someone says, oh, you want to kill teenagers at high school. Like, this movie is starting to be on that idea.
Just because there's a prom, I'm sorry. I think that's going a bit too far. Just because there's a prom.
No, it's because the truth of it was this was a veteran of foreign wars club. This had no teenagers in it. The fact that they chose to make it teenagers meant that they knew that it should be going in this direction. But yeah, the actual attack was not a prom night. This thing is really weird. Not only is it prom night, but they have Auld Lang Syne and do like a New Year's drop on April 14th.
I had to go and look at the date because I'm like, have we just jumped like 6 months? But no, it's April.
No, Auld Lang Syne makes much more sense as a song to play at a graduation than at New Year's. I don't understand this whole should old acquaintance be forgot. Yeah, I'm going to forget the people I went to high school with. I'm not going to forget people who I spent New Year's with come a few weeks from now. So no, I felt like it was a good repurposing of that song to make it much more in line with its lyrics.
I will back you up on that, Arnie. That was the thought that came to me. I'm like, oh, this does kind of make sense for high school graduates.
Right. But the truth of it was for veterans after the war. Again, asking that question, could this be about PTSD? We don't know because we don't know who the killer is. But the actual victim here, Betty Jo Booker, Paul Merton, she was 15 years old, a saxophonist who was just playing in a teen band for veterans. And then, yes, went to this makeout spot. That she's Peggy Loomis.
Carpenter took that, right? Like, Carpenter must have seen this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there are shots here. There are moments where I feel like Carpenter even repurposed the visuals.
Yeah, I'll say this is like, I guess, if we're going to talk about our favorite attacks of like people getting murdered in real life, like this is kind of my favorite, like the way, yeah, the Phantom's gonna jump on the car and get zoomed around, and then somehow he pulls the driver out with them, but like, it's kind of exciting.
Yeah. Can you imagine? He looks so stupid. Like that, you should really attack before they start the car.
Yeah, I thought they'd get away. I really did. I thought this might be some clue to capturing the killer. I didn't know he was gonna get away at the end of the film. And so, the fact that that car is zooming like that, and then he does pull out the driver, but I'm like, could women drive in 1946? Did they know how to drive? She tries to take the wheel, but she ends up just crashing the car into a bunch of trees and shrieking so much that I feel like she doesn't know how to operate the vehicle.
I mean, yeah, they could drive physically. Oh, I felt like she was scared. It's dark. I don't even know if her lights were on.
And again, if she's the age of the actual character, she didn't even have her learner's permit yet. It's 15. So yeah, she doesn't know what to do. But yes, I think that this is just more an attempt to be scary, but more physical comedy. The stuff that is meant to be funny, you're like, huh? And the stuff that's meant to be scary is making me crack up.
Okay, so what's the behind the scenes? You watched all the extras. You have an answer for me. Knife taped to a trombone and then like slid in and out to stab a woman. Like, what is the impetus for this? Like, I've never seen anything like this. I will never forget this film because of this trombone murder.
The real story was that they got separated, that he ended up about a half a mile away from her. I think she did die around the trees, kind of like they imply that she's kind of half hugging here. And I think the screenwriter realized he needed more. He needed a gimmick. Okay, well, what can we look at? She was a saxophonist, and there was a long time the saxophone went missing from the vehicle. They were like, did the killer try to pawn it? They did find it behind a pawn shop in a dumpster. So yes, it appears that it was a criminal trying to rob somebody. That's all that this was. But we're trying to make a story about a killer, a phantom that's going around attacking couples for psychosexual reasons. They know it needs to have that slasher motivation. So God bless the screenwriter. He's like, what if we tape a knife to this trombone slide, and this the mask doesn't even have a mouth hole. He can't even blow air out of it, but he's going to try to bleat as he's making the slide knife go into her. Woo! This is the dumbest kill I've ever seen.
You'll never forget it, though.
It may be dumb, but it does also have this sexual bit to it as he's impaling her again and again, sliding it in and out like that, sliding on the trombone, blowing on the trombone. It was stupid, and the way it was so slow was kind of funny, but, you know, they're going to later try to psychoanalyze this killer, and I think this would be a large part of that analysis.
Yeah, that's why I was, like, so fascinated by this, because I'm way overthinking this movie. I brought too much brain power into it for what they were going to serve me throughout it, but I'm, like, trying to diagnose this killer, like, why did he use this trombone, and, yeah, this sexual motion of in and out, sliding back and forth, and, yeah, we'll get some psychological psychobabble, like, in the next scene, but wow, I thought this was going to be like way more important that he used a trombone.
I mean, again, it is what it is, and they don't have answers, and there are no real answers. So again, like, you could just fill it in if you want, but knowing that the killer would have the need to make this sexual is the staple, right? For all slashers that come, they're going to do that forever. This screenwriter knew that much, even though he couldn't get to a logical conclusion. I mean, it makes you beg for band camp, right? Like the slasher where they're grabbing cymbals and trumpets and xylophones, death by xylophone. Can we do that?
Yes, let's make this movie.
Yeah, it begs the mind into thinking about how you could take this to crazier heights. But yes, no one was killed in any way that was outlandish or exotic in the actual case. There was no musical weapon death. It just had a saxophone that went missing and was later found. And yes, Dr. Kress blows in at this point. I mean, he even gets asked. Like, the men are, like, picking his brain. You're like, why did he bite the girls? And the doctor's like, you might as well ask why he used the trombone. And I'm like, well, yes, we are asking exactly that. We want to know these reasons. And this is a funny, it reminds me of that long-winded scene at the end of Psycho where they bring in the shrink to just give you a whole lot of garbage. And this guy is just spitting, a sadist with a strong sex drive is like a D- paper, I think.
And this is where they're like, it could be a prominent citizen, and then as these cops are talking, we pan over to someone's feet, and like they get up and leave. I'm like, ooh, is it a cop? Like, I'm starting to pay attention to all the cops. Like, who is this killer? I guess this is all stuff they made up. Like, the killer is there listening in and everything.
I mean, here's the part that is, I think, relevant. And again, getting back to my original thesis about this is about paranoia and fear, was that Kress was, I don't think that was his name, but he was a real person. They did, when the press was trying to write about these cases, they tried to dig somebody up, and it was published in the local paper that this was possibly a prominent citizen. That psychopaths could actually look like you and me, but kill. And in 1946, that is not a common thought. Now, I do think in 1976, after the Zodiac Killer, after Manson, the idea that killers live among us, that they're our neighbors, is not novel. But in 1946, this would send people into crazy land, right? The reason why this case got talked up is not because it's the most brutal or they had these crazy trombone killings. It was because the townspeople could not understand that something like this could live among them.
Which, if that is your thesis about this murder spree, you show townspeople talking amongst themselves, and you have those scenes. You don't have a person putting up a dirty sheet in front of their window.
Yeah, you don't have the cops.
Yeah, the fact that this is called the Town That Dreaded Sundown, and the only townspeople we really get to meet are law enforcement, it really kind of undermines that. You really have to buy into what this narrator keeps chiming in with about what's happening in the town. I think he says the town's dreading sundown twice. People were afraid to walk in front of their windows after the sun went down, and then later they say specifically they dread sundown. It's just very on the nose, but I'm not feeling it, I'm hearing it.
No, yeah, and you don't do this. I mean, you don't have voiceover narration to this extent ever. Like, it begs the question, what is he doing? Because if he's not trying to scare us, and by framing it this way, by making it feel like a newsreel, you're not feeling like you're in a horror movie. But at the same time, he's not telling you the real events either. So, like, this is not an accurate reporting of what happened to his town. I feel like what he's presenting is what his child imagination felt from the bits and pieces that were floating around. That if you were a 10-year-old in Texarkana in 1946 it would feel crazy and loose and paranoid like this.
And then you have the film start like with an old man, like, let me tell you a story about when I was 10. Like, you're bringing all this in because you watched all these extra features, you read up on the history. Like, none of that is in this film. That, like, I just bought it, like, this is more or less what the facts were because this is a docudrama.
I do like the scene, though, you're talking about with that shrink who has a goatee straight out of Freud. I don't know that goatees were really all that popular either in the 40s or the 70s. They came along very popular later.
Oh, those beatniks had goatees.
Okay. I may not be familiar with my history of facial hair, but it stuck out to me that it was a gray goatee like I associate with Sigmund. But I did like that the killer is implied to be in that restaurant and listening to the cops, and we get to see his work boots that are cut. I guess he needs a new pair of shoes. They look like they've got a big flap in them, but he's been sitting there listening. We see the back of his head and kind of a 1/4 view of his head as he's turned his head listening to what's being said about him at the table, and then we're just going to follow his feet as he walks out of the restaurant.
It makes you wonder, was it a cop?
That's what I was thinking.
Well, like, is the reason why they couldn't catch him was that it was somebody's inside job. You know, sometimes it can go that way. We don't, the person that they fingered for most of it was a car thief. It's not going to be the car thief that they are next going to present. This is a made-up character. When we have the gas station attendant say, hey, I took a guy to fill up his car for $1, and he still owes me that $1. All of this is contrived humor for this movie, but they did believe the people that are going to tell you who the killer is have largely landed on the idea that it was this car thief whose spree stopped because he was arrested on a different charge. He couldn't kill anybody else because he spent 30 years in jail. But again, there's a real disagreement about whether these are even all the same killers. And was this just people saying it was one killer because that's all that they could imagine? It would have been too coincidental for them to recognize that they lived in a town of brutality.
Yeah, they think they have the killer, perhaps. They find this car thief, Eddie, and then, oh boy, we're going to get some more humor. Sparkplug, he just all gas and no brakes as he speeds to the crime scene and crashes that car.
Ooh. Oh my God, right into a swamp where you get to see, it's like a Dukes of Hazzard joke with Boss Hogg getting out of the car and walking through the swamp, getting his legs soaked, only instead of Boss Hogg, it's the Texas Ranger.
Yeah.
People like Dukes of Hazzard. I never watched the show, but again, he was on to something, right? There is entertainment value. Cannonball Run did this a lot.
Dukes of Hazzard is not a slasher film.
Yeah. Well, again, neither is this. This movie doesn't really know what it is. This is not a man that's thinking in terms of what genre is. He does not playing by the rules. He's just kind of winging it. And so because of that, because it's so freeform, you can see a lot of things. But yeah, I think this movie is as influential on Cannonball Run and Dukes of Hazzard as it is on Friday the 13th.
But then we're going to get to a big moment for me, our final attack, where we get to see this pretty brunette, and I'm like, she looks familiar. Is that? And I had to pause the movie to validate. Yes, this is Mary Ann from Gilligan's Island.
Oh, I saw Don Wells in the credit. I'm like, yes, Mary Ann over Ginger every day. Big Gilligan's Island fan when I was a kid. So, like, I'm like, oh, here's someone I know. Finally, I don't know who the main character of this film is. Don't know who the killer is. Don't know anything that's going on in this film. But at least I recognize Don Wells.
A last-minute replacement. Dawn had actually worked with the director on other films. She had done some kind of Western the year before. And when his actress that he had cast for this, they shot the scene of her coming out of the grocery store and the woman couldn't read lines and carry the grocery bags. They called Dawn at the last minute, said, you got to fly in. She did a day's work. And so all of this was really done on the fly. That she did not prepare for this movie. She was kind of thrown into this movie, which is weird because she is the only recognizable face at this point. I don't even know Ben Johnson, really. But her, I knew.
But yeah, this feels, again, a different modus operandi. They've told us, like, he did it on 20 days instead of 21. But, like, yeah, the fact that he's now attacking people in a home instead of Lover's Lane, shooting through the window, it feels really bizarre.
Yeah, and by the way, the bullets didn't match. Like, they don't think it's the same gun. So, again, this is probably not the same killer. The two groups of couples that were killed at Lover's Lane, the second group and the third probably the same killer. These other two, probably disconnected.
Well, at least the film's tying them together, and that's better than giving us a serial killer that only has 2 attacks.
I mean, is it ethical? I mean, do we have the right to go and look in the obituaries and invent a killer, like, based on... I mean, it's what exploitation is, right? Like, we just seize an opportunity to profit off someone else's misery. But is that right? I mean, I don't think they changed the names to protect the innocent. I think they changed the names to not get sued, because they didn't really want to do the story. Like, this is not accurate reporting. This is not a documentary. However much it might look like one and being presented as docudrama, it is lurid, and they are spending a lot of time on making the kills exciting.
And this one is. I love the chase through the field. I really thought, shot in the face, I thought Dawn Wells was out of it, but she's gonna be a survivor who, bleeding from the face, shot twice. She's gonna go running and get to a neighbor's house, and the neighbor's either not answering or not home. This is honestly the best attack in the whole movie, and I'm glad they saved it for the end. It isn't as memorable as the trombone, but it's far more exciting.
No, but I played a game of, like, I take this score out and put that Carpenter one, and there are shots when she's running and banging. Like, that's Jamie Lee in Halloween running to the neighbor's house and banging on the door and saying, "Let me in," and no one's coming to her rescue. I do see in brief little moments, not saying this guy is a pioneer or a master of anything, but he stumbled in towards something that would end up being a beloved genre. He found in brief little moments these things that other people would polish into diamonds. Funny story, too. I got to tell this one. Dawn Wells is one of the people on the Blu-ray. And, she talked about how, like, it was a very loose production. She knew that she had to run to a house with a barking dog. There was a pit bull. Nobody was even sure who the owner was. It was somebody's job to put a stake in the ground so that the dog didn't get free. And the director told her, "Don't worry, it's not going to get free. It won't attack you." Action. Sure enough, first take, dog is breaking free, and 30 people, because it's Texas, 30 people have guns on the set and shoot at this dog. No. Dawn Wells is like, "I wasn't scared because I was acting. I was scared because there are bullets flying all around me."
Yeah, they're lucky. Did the dog die?
No, you would think that maybe they were all drunk. I know that a lot of the actors were, but apparently they didn't hit the dog. It just ran away.
30 people pull out guns, bullets flying over, and no one got hit. They are lucky.
Yeah. She said that, and she wasn't allowed to break any corn stalks. It was $1.50 every time she broke a corn stalk. So it was a really grueling shoot for this woman.
I want a docudrama style movie of the making of this film.
Yeah. It's no Gilligan's Island. I can tell you her worst day on that sitcom is nothing compared to a day on this set.
It seems like I've seen out of a scary movie thing or something, is that a dog gets loose in Texas and 30 people pull out guns at once. I mean, that feels like a parody scene.
Yeah, but I do want to just bring it back one more time. This is the Stark murder. It's a farmhouse. It's not people in a car at Lover's Lane. They couldn't match the gun to the scene. Katie did live, as this would imply, but because she was shot in the face, actually shot through the mouth and I guess there was blood in her eyes. She never saw her attacker and did not believe he wore a mask. So they have no way to really link any of this to what happened before, other than the fact it was a month later. And so I guess the curiosity is it more horrifying to think there's a mad killer running around attacking your neighbors, or you just live in a community where bad, violent things happen all the time, and you should just get used to it? It's nothing out of the ordinary.
I mean, isn't that what this film should be? Like, yeah, there's a murderer, that everyone is crazy, that there's multiple just psychos out there, you can't trust, small town America. Like, there's the more interesting film exploring all that. This doesn't explore that, and I guess it doesn't even tell the truth very well. So it's even more baffling as I learn the true story.
Right. Yeah, I agreed. Like, what is this film is a true existential crisis by this point. And they didn't have an ending. Like, this movie was just going to stop here, and it was Ramsey. The actor playing Ramsey is like, no, we got to come up with something where we catch the guy. So it was the actors, after a bender. They got drunk and then came up with the idea, Morales and I should just find the guy out there in the sand pits. And so all of this was kind of improvised by the actors on the spot.
That explains why it feels so different than the rest of the film, because the place where they're filming and as you mentioned, the sand pit, it felt a little bit different and it just seemed really loose. I mean, say what you will about the rest of the film, but I felt like maybe it was the narrator, maybe it was the pacing, but it felt like there was some structure to it, and this, at the end, felt really just loosey-goosey, and it feels like an afterthought. I couldn't believe I was watching the same movie.
You get like a shootout and a chase, and then like a train gets in between the Phantom and Morales, and like by the time that train passes, like he's had an 8-minute head start. I'm like, how long is that train? I guess it was going slow or something.
That train's going so slowly. Did you guys notice the cameraman on it?
No.
Yeah, I swear to God, I had to back it up because I'm like, did I see what I thought I saw? One of those trains, when we are seeing like a shot of the two cops running, you could clearly see a cameraman in a t-shirt and shorts holding a giant film camera standing on one of those cars.
I mean, that's not a surprise. Look at the rest of this film.
Yeah. No one cares enough now to digitally erase them. They kept it in for the Blu-ray. Yeah. Well, I mean, I just kind of laugh about the fact that the Phantom, even in the bright daylight, is still wearing the sack.
It's gotta be hot. You
never take it off? Wouldn't it be wise to not wear it when you're not killing people so that people don't think you're the guy? But,
I was so mad. These cops are incompetent. I get why they can't get them, but the bloodhounds, come on, you're defaming bloodhounds at this point.
Well, apparently, with the farmhouse attack, the Donwell's attack, the cops did ruin it. They did bring in bloodhounds. There had been so many people invited. That was the problem. The Texas Rangers were there. We had the Texas side. We had the Arkansas side. Everyone is coming in and out of this crime scene. They ruined the chance for the dogs to pick up the scent. And so they actually destroyed their lead and maybe would have been able to catch the guy, but didn't. Incompetence. And I don't know if that comes through. I mean, I think Ben Johnson looked pretty noble here at the end, but I think the way that some people talk about it in the commentary is because he was such a big celebrity and he was so renowned for gunning people down, there was somebody earlier in the movie that asked him if he was going to implement justice like he does down in Laredo. This guy actually was a hindrance. By having a Texas Ranger and not having a unified police force, you had this guy that was, again, just like talking to the press too much and fomenting this celebrity that, I don't know, it just made it hard for the real cops to do the work. And consequently, who knows, they arrested one guy and ended up letting him go, but they never were able to convict a phantom killer.
And this is going to imply the Phantom Killer survived 40 years to make it to the screening of this film in Texarkana. He never left town. He got some new shoes.
Looked like he still had a limp, though. Like, he got shot in the leg or something from that shootout, and they're showing the shoes. They showed us that earlier, but yeah, it's okay, sure.
Pierce did make this movie, obviously, for locals, and I do think that this ending is probably more scary to them than people watching this movie in a movie theater in New York or California, but he ended up getting sued. The local cops got really mad because he kept marketing this movie as the killer still walks the streets to this day. And they were like, wait, no, you can't say that. So he had to go to court over making this claim.
Is that why they have this, I don't want to say Animal House style ending, but I think that made it famous, where you go through each character and where are they now? And all of these are yeah, this cop, he retired in the 70s, but he always kept looking. Oh, and this cop, yeah, he retired in the 72 and he kept looking. And this cop, well, he died, but he kept looking too.
They do it for all of the cops except Sparkplug. Why didn't Sparkplug keep looking for the killer?
Yeah, because he never looked. He could never even stay on the road.
He couldn't find his keys.
But yeah, it is funny. Again, this is why I'm laughing, is he never gave up until he retired. I'm like, well, then he gave up. What are you talking about? He did not, stay with this. What it is they don't want to get sued. They don't want these lawmen to say that they didn't put in all their effort. And it sounds like too many cooks. The problem might have been that if there had been a more unified, less sensationalized climate, that good police work, even with the limitations of not having the DNA testing we do now, they might have been able to conclusively say it was that car thief that they think is probably it.
Yeah, well, the town may have sued about this at the time, but they've come to embrace it because in Texarkana every year is a horror film festival at Halloween, and every year the final film shown in Texarkana before Halloween is The Town That Dreaded Sundown. So
they really do that? That feels weird.
Yeah, no, I definitely think celebrated local filmmaker. Maybe not everyone enjoyed this movie. We'll find out if we did, but I do think that it has a place in people's hearts in Texarkana.
But does it have a place in our hearts? Jacob, Stewart, can you recommend The Town That Dreaded Sundown? Jacob.
I mean, look, let me try to say something positive about this, because this is a real goofy film. There are things that I will never forget. Spark plug, trombone, knifings, but not for good reasons. But this really made me appreciate, and I think I like this film's Zodiac by David Fincher the most when we reviewed that one. It just made me appreciate that one even more. I kept thinking about that, how you take a story about, a city or a town, a state. That was a movie where you show, LA cops and San Francisco cops, they're, screwing up the case. They're they hit all these points. I'm like, did Fincher use this as, this story feels so similar, and yet, he was able to find a main character and tell the story through them and show the paranoia without the constant narration. And so, I don't know, this made me appreciate a pretty good film even more. That's the best thing I could say about it. But if you're like Stuart, if you're a film historian, you're into film school and you want to know what the missing link is between Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Friday the 13th, I mean, I definitely was thinking that in John Carpenter's Halloween, I guess this is an interesting artifact, an interesting bone to slowly move the dust off of and examine and see that history and evolution of the slasher. That's a real conditional recommend, though, for that amount of homework. This is homework on top of homework, especially finding out a lot of this stuff isn't even true. So yeah, I didn't laugh in a good way. Every time there was humor, every time Sparkplug was looking for the keys or crashing the car, and that score was playing, I'm scratching my head. What is going on? What is the tone of this film? It wasn't a good time. It was a baffling time. It's like we've all said it. It's an amateur film, but oh wow, if you want a good slasher, this is not it. This is, a pretty solid not recommend.
Stuart.
Yeah, and I'll state this. If I haven't made myself plain, Sundown 76, not a well-made movie. Not entertaining in any conventional sense. It's not scary enough to please horror fans. It's not psychologically complex enough to work as police procedural. And yeah, the comedy, the cops swerving all around the road. I mean, add to the fact that, that this is not even documentary, that this has largely been retold to exploit tragedy as opposed to clarify what went down in Texarkana at this time. You might ask, what is left to recommend? I do think, yes, this is not a horror landmark, but I definitely think it's an important footnote. I definitely think that it explains how we got from Tobe Hooper's rural comedy to John Carpenter's 78 classic slasher and everything that came after, like the Friday the 13th. You see the influence all over the place, from character names, camera compositions, the killer's costume. We don't always endorse homework. It's not for everybody, but I do think that if this is your jam, if you like horror movies, you're going to find it interesting to see this as connective tissue. I'm also going to offer the reason why I'm going to recommend this movie is I constantly found it amusing. I was not bored by this film, and quite the opposite. It's so absurdist. I mean, the trombone scene alone is why you have to see it. You just have to. You just absolutely, from the trombone scene, recommend go watch this movie. And yeah, just all the goofiness in between. I was left with a lot to chew on. It's not from a master of horror, but it is, again, a footnote in horror that I am glad I saw. So, mild recommend.
So Sean Ray says cut all the humor. You're saying, no, save it. That's what makes it watchable.
Well, I think some of it's, I think there's humor all over. I think even the scary parts are funny. So I don't think there's anything scary here. So I don't understand a review that says enjoy it for the scary parts. There are no scary parts. But there's a lot of amusing stuff.
I'll half agree. There are no scary parts. And I feel like to recommend this as horror homework is to a very niche audience there. Because watching this film, coming in for the first time, not knowing anything about the true story, just watching this, you say you weren't bored. I found myself drumming my fingers a little bit during all of the scenes with the cops, because probably 80% of this movie is cop scenes. And if they're the spark plug scenes, they're more painful than a trombone in your back because they are so unfunny. And if they're not with spark plug, then they're just dull. But then you do have the punctuation of the attacks, which were well filmed, but yeah, not scary in any way. And I think we're a little bit ahead of their time, or perhaps, as we said, influential on other later horror films. But recommend? Do I think this is either a good police procedural or a good horror film or a good comedy? No, on all three counts. I didn't mind watching it. It wasn't painful. It's not a strong not recommend, but it's a definite not recommend from me. I'm sorry, Sean, but I just didn't dread The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Yeah, again, I want to stress, this is not one you turn on to get scared by. It is one that, again, amusing. Bored? I wasn't bored. I was scratching my head a lot. And again, it made me think. So that's its own kind of reward. But I'm agreeing with you guys. This movie fails to do everything that it was trying to do, but it helped other people do it correctly down the road.
The thing is, it actually gives me hope for our review next week, where it's a remake.
We can only go up from here, right?
And if they didn't have the rules of horror films created in 1976, or at least the rules of slasher films created when they made this movie, well, now they're firmly entrenched. By 2014, when Blumhouse is remaking this film, I'm like, there's actually a chance that the sequel can be better than the original.
Yes, and we're doing it. Sean Ray didn't ask us to do it. He was only, I think, endorsing the 1976 Sundown.
He hadn't even seen the 2014 movie.
Yeah, in 2014, Blumhouse partners with Orion Pictures, and we get a sequel? We'll talk about it. We will see a continuation in Texarkana of the legacy of this movie and the true crimes. And in between, this Friday, we got another Expendables movie.
Expendables 3. We're almost to the new film. The new film is opening this weekend. We'll be reviewing that next Friday. But you can join Brock, Stewart, and I as we review Sylvester Stallone's latter-day action trilogy.
Quadrilogy now.
Yeah, that's true. That's now a quadrilogy series. But it is coming to the end of our donation drive. So if you want to hear our reviews of the Piranha films, all the shark movies we did, the Expendables, the Indiana Jones films, or the Evil Dead films, I know some of those seem so long ago now, you can hear those reviews and help support this podcast. Just a couple more weeks before all of those shows only become available individually over on our Patreon shop. And we start our new donation drive, which we can't wait to announce on Expendables 4. So you can find all the details of how to support this show and hear dozens of bonus exclusive podcast reviews at nowplayingpodcast.com/donate. And Jacob, Stewart, thank you for joining me. And until next time, don't look back.
I gotta run. I'll see you, Chief. Guys.
Thank you for listening to this Now Playing Podcast movie review.
So I just wanted to show him that I'm grateful. Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed the show.
Again, let me say, it's a pleasure to see all of you out here having such a good time. And I think tonight has been a fitting climax to what has been a great year.
And a special thank you to Sean Ray for his amazing support of Now Playing, and for picking The Town That Dreaded Sundown for our hosts to review.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
And come back to NowPlayingPodcast.com next Tuesday for another all-new movie review podcast.
I'm going to do it again and again until you make them remember.
Help us spread the word about this show by leaving a 5-star review on Stitcher, iTunes, or your podcast store of choice.
It's a source of pleasure to him. Makes him feel important.
Want more reviews like this one? In the archives section of NowPlayingPodcast.com, you'll find more than 1,000 in-depth movie reviews from our panel of hosts.
Now we just use it for storage. All of our archives and files.
Support from listeners like you keeps Now Playing Podcast on the air.
Well, we're doing the best we can possibly do.
You can donate directly by tapping the support button at NowPlayingPodcast.com.
If you want money, I can get you money.
Need more Now Playing? Subscribe to our In Focus weekly newsletter for exclusive digital download giveaways, celebrity interviews, behind-the-scenes insights, and more. Sign up through the subscribe page on our website and get it delivered to your inbox every Friday.
I'll keep you informed as to what I'm doing.
Now Playing Podcast is produced by Arnie Carvalho.
Since I'm in charge of this investigation, things are going to have to be handled my way.
Associate produced by Jason Latham.
I am not going to let this mess be the most important thing in your life.
Now Playing is edited by Heath, Santiago, and Arnie.
I heard something. I'm not kidding. I heard something.
Now Playing credits read by Brock.
Well, I'm just going by the statistical profile he fits within, Captain. This thing has become a game with him, you know.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the views of Venganza Media Incorporated.
Rumors can hurt us.
Venganza Media Incorporated is not affiliated with, and this podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by any entity that created the film analyzed herein.
You don't mean that fellow they call the Lone Wolf of the Texas Rangers?
That's right.
All movie clips and music included in this podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. They are included here for the purpose of review, and no infringement is intended.
Make Texarkana pay for its sins.
Now Playing Podcast is an exclusive trademark of and may not be used without the express written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
You want an official or a private reply?
Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2023, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated. All rights reserved.
What happened to the Phantom Killer, no one really knows. Some believe he was convicted of another crime, and today he is still serving his term in a Kansas prison. Some believe he died here in these swamps. Texarkana today still looks pretty much the same. And if you should ask people here on the streets what they believe happened to the Phantom Killer, most would say that he is still living here and is walking free.